ready to begin. Otherwise, we'll be stuck in matter all day and we won't even get to the interesting part, which is consciousness. Okay, so this is the session 3, Saturday morning, starting at 10:20. Okay, so we've covered primary matter. Okay, and now we come to the types of what are called derived matter, derivative matter, secondary matter. Of which there are 24 kinds. And these 24 kinds of derived matter can fit together into certain groups or sets. So the first set is that of the 5 sense faculties. So that's the 5 internal physical sense bases, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. Okay, and it's explained now. We look at the text that the eye's characteristic is sensitivity of primary elements that is ready for the impact of visible data. And the word that's rendered here as sensitivity, the Pali word is pasada. And the word pasada is used to designate this group of, it applies to all 5 of the sense organs or sense faculties. But I should say that the sense faculty, according to the Adamic mode of explanation, is not exactly identical with the sense organ. So the eye is not this lump of matter that, well, I can't pull it out and show it to you. It's not this lump of matter that's lodged within this particular hole over here. But what is said is that within this eye organ, there is a particular type of matter which is sensitive to light, to color, to visible form. And that is what is meant by the eye faculty, or the eye as a sense base. The rest of the eye organ, serves to support and to sustain that sensitive matter. But it is that sensitive matter which has the specific function of receiving lights and colors. So instead of the eye, that its function is to pick up an object among visible data. Perhaps what the ancients called the eye sensitivity would correspond to what modern physiologists would call the rods and cones of the eye in the retina. And it's said that this eye sensitivity is originated by karma. Nyanamoli said sourcing from desire to see. Sourcing, it's a rather clumsy verb. So I would say it's karma stemming from or caused by a desire to see. I put it's a long Pali compound here. So it's originating samutana from karma, which is caused by nidana, a desire to see, which might seem to like a philosophical materialist to have the cart before the horse. But according to Buddhism, the reason why we acquire the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body sensitivity is because from our previous existence we had a craving or desire to experience forms, sounds, odors, tastes, and tactile sensations. And so these 5 physical sense bases are the media, the means through which we get access to the objects that we desire to experience. And when life comes to an end, when one particular existence comes to an end, that craving is still there, still present within the stream of consciousness. And it is that craving which will give rise to a sentient being which develops the sense faculties through which they can continue to experience in the new life visible forms, sounds, odors, tastes, and tactile objects. And the particular way in which the eye, ear, and so forth are formed or shaped, that comes about through the operation of karma. And then the proximate cause or the underlying cause for the eye sensitivity are the primary elements. So the primary elements are the basis or foundation, and then derived from those primary elements comes this particular, very particular type of matter called eye sensitivity, which is receptive to or responsive to colors, forms, shapes, light. And it is on the basis of the eye sensitivity that visual consciousness will arise with the ability to see the colors, shapes, and forms. Okay, the same thing applies to what we call the ear. So the ear base or the ear faculty is not this thing here. In a way, this is just sort of like all like support or protector of the ear faculty. But the actual ear faculty is something sort of inside the ear channel, which has the special ability to respond to pick up sounds or to pick up vibrations of air and to experience them as sounds. So it's said that the ear's characteristic is sensitivity of primary elements ready for the impact of sounds, and it originates from a desire to hear, and its function is to pick up some kind of sounds. And it is the basis for ear consciousness. Okay, then what we call the nose, again, the nose faculty is this matter, this sensitive matter, which is able to pick up fragrances or scents. So this thing here, which might be long or short, beaked or what is the other shape? Pointed up, maybe it makes us like nice and so forth, but this itself is is not the nose faculty, but this is the sort of support for the nose faculty. But the actual nose faculty is something located up these nostrils, maybe around here inside, which has the ability, maybe it would correspond to the olfactory nerves, that which is able to pick up fragrances and to serve as a basis for the experience of smelling. And it is the support or basis for nose consciousness. So on the basis of this nose sensitivity, nose consciousness arises, smelling odors. Okay, the tongue is also a kind of sensitive matter, which would be spread out over the tongue organ. So over this tongue is the tongue sensitivity, which would probably correspond in modern terms to the taste buds. And it has this ability to respond to or to pick up flavors and tastes. And it's the basis for tongue consciousness. So tongue consciousness arises sort of based on the tongue faculty, and the tongue consciousness is able to experience the tastes of different kinds of foods. Okay, then we have what we call the body. The body faculty is not exactly what we call our body, but it is a kind of sensitive matter which is spread out maybe primarily on the skin, but also even on the internal organs of the body, throughout the whole body. This body sensitivity is located, and it has the ability to pick up what's called tangible data or tactile data, textures, or even the internal body faculty could pick up bodily sensations. Like if one gets a queasy feeling in one's stomach, that would be through the operation of body sensitivity. And so the rest of the physical body is a sort of support for this body sensitivity. But the function of the body sensitivity, the specific function, is to pick up the tactile sensations. Okay, so these are the 5 types of derived matter which are grouped together as the 5 kinds of sense faculties, or the 5 kinds of sensitivities. Okay, these distinctions not so important. Okay, here it's explaining in the case of the eye. Okay, there is what is called the eye in the world. So that looks like a blue lotus petal. And it's surrounded by black eyelashes and varied with dark and light circles. Okay, so that is the eye, what we would call the eye sense organ. But the eye sensitivity is to be found in the place in the middle of the black circle surrounded by the white circle, in that feature of the eye with its accessories, where there appears the image of the bodies who stand in front of it. So this corresponds very closely, I guess, to the retina with its rods and cones. Do we have any ophthalmologists in the room? Okay, I could make maybe inaccurate statements without fear of being reprimanded. And then it's said to be the size of a louse's head, and it serves both as a physical basis and as a door for eye consciousness and the other types of consciousness in this series. Okay, a similar way is explaining the other sense faculties. Okay, let us move on now to the next group of types of derived material phenomena. This group comprises the sense data or the sense objects. And interesting, if you just take a quick look at them, we have visible data or visible forms. We have sound, odor, and flavors, but we don't find here the tactile object, the object of touch. And it might seem like an oversight, but according to the Abhidhamma, or what is said in the Abhidhamma, is that the object of touch is actually the primary elements themselves. So what we touch is not a separate datum, but the primary elements. And specifically, it's said that the objects of touch are the earth element. Of course, when we touch something, we experience hardness, softness, smoothness, or roughness. So that is the earth element. And then we experience through touch the fire element as either warmth or coolness, depending on its relation to our own bodily temperature. So I touch this bamboo spread on the table, it feels cool. So that's kind of deficiency in the fire element compared to my body. If I touch a warm stove, then I feel warmth. So that's direct experience of the fire element. And then through our body, we can feel motion, we could feel pressure, distension, expansion, and contraction. So that is the direct tactile experience of the air element. But it's said in the Abhidhamma that one cannot directly experience the water element because the water element has the function of binding or cohesion, and that is something that's inferred but can't be directly experienced. That is what is said in the Abhidhamma, but some of you who have been to my classes know what's coming. This is my experience in Sri Lanka many years ago. You know, we don't have a drying machine there, so we hang the clothes out to dry. And one day I had a towel after bathing. I hung the towel out on the line to dry. Then I came outside to feel whether the towel was dry, and I felt it. And the towel was wet. Then it occurred to me, hey, according to the Abhidhamma, I'm not supposed to be experiencing wetness. I'm supposed to be inferring that something has the water element based on the other tactile sensations. And then I realized I have to say that I disagree with the Abhidhamma here. That I think wetness and dryness, you can't reduce it to heat or cold or hardness or softness. It's quite a distinct sensation in itself. But I'm not here to offer my own opinions. Okay, so we have visible data. And this has the characteristic of impinging on the I, and its function is said to be the objective field of I consciousness. And again, it is based on the 4 primary elements. And similar for sound, odor, and flavor. Each impinges on its respective sense faculty, and its function is to be the object of that. Its function is to be the object of the corresponding type of consciousness. Okay, so here I just had to note the absence of the tactile object, which is said to be the 3 primary elements: earth, fire, and air. Okay, the next 2 types of derived matter, these 2 belong together as a set and normally mutually exclusive. So these are said to be the 2 faculties which determine one's particular gender or one's particular sex. So one is the female, is the femininity faculty, which determines a person as being of the female sex, and the other is the masculinity faculty, which determines a person as being of the male sex. And it's said that its manifestation, it is manifested as the reason, in the case of the female faculty, as the mark, sign, work, and ways of the female. I put the Pali expression or terms here. Iti linga, these would be the distinctive characteristics of a female. The nimitta would be, again, that general appearance that distinguishes someone as female. Kuta would be the way of acting, way of moving, even the gestures and so forth. And the kappa would be like the manner. It seems to be very kappa, kuta. I don't quite know the distinction between them. So here it's translated as the work, but it doesn't mean like that there's particular jobs that women are supposed to do, but it's more the activity or modes of movement and modes of gesturing that's distinctive of the female in one case, the male of the other. And kappa might be the ways of acting. And it's said that these 2 are coextensive with the whole body. They're said to be spread out through the whole body. Perhaps they correspond to the chromosomes. One is XX. The female is XY. The female is XX. And the male is XY. I'm sorry, I'm a little ignorant of these things. Okay, so perhaps it corresponds to these particular chromosomes in modern terms. Okay, the next type of derived matter is called the life faculty. So this is the vitality of the body, and it's said to have the characteristic, though this seems to me more like a function, of maintaining, it's preserving the co-nascent kinds of matter. I assume does anybody not know what the word co-nascent means? Yeah, this is one of these words. I call this another example of boot English. Just last week, somebody wrote to me, and with just a short email with the question, what does the word co-nascent mean? And I said, if you look it up in the dictionary, you probably won't find it. So co-nascent comes from co, which means together with, along with. And nascent means born. So a simpler rendering would be co-arisen or co-produced, things that arise simultaneously. Actually, simultaneous would be a good rendering. Simultaneous kinds of matter. So it's said that the life faculty, that even though material phenomena arise because of their own conditions, but the life faculty maintains them, just like a wet nurse maintains or brings up a prince. There's a rather technical discussion here, which we don't have to get into. Okay, then the next type of derived matter is what is called the heart basis. The Pali word is hadayavatu. And it's not, the heart basis is not exactly the same as the physical heart, the heart which pumps the blood. But it's said to be a subtle kind of matter located roughly in the region of the physical heart. And this type of matter is said to be the material support for the mind element and the mind consciousness element. It's said that it is found in dependence on the blood. And it is assisted by the primaries and so forth. And it serves as the physical basis for the mind element and mind consciousness element. And this identification of the heart basis is not actually found in the Nikayas, in the suttas themselves, and it is not found in the canonical Abhidhamma, but it's introduced in the commentaries. So the canonical Abhidhamma speaks only of, it says there is a particular kind of matter in dependence on which the mind element and mind consciousness element occur. And then the commentaries identify that matter with the heart base. And so today, people who are with some scientific education say, no, we now know the heart can't be the base of consciousness, but the base of consciousness must be the brain, because there are experiments which show that if certain parts of the brain are damaged or injured, corresponding mental functions don't occur. I have a different view. I go along with the old commentators. You agree with me? Oh, good. Whenever Carolyn agrees, then I feel extra confidence. Okay, this is my reasoning. And I use the analogy of a computer, that what enables the computer to process all of the data and to turn out print, to load up files, all of that is occurring through the central processing unit. And the central processing unit is what corresponds to the brain. However, the computer doesn't get its power from the central processing unit. The power source for the computer, well, suppose it wasn't plugged into the wall, then it would be the battery. So the battery is what provides the power, and the CPU is what processes the data, stores up the data in memory form, unloads the data from memory and so forth. And so I see the heart base to correspond to the battery of the computer, and the brain to correspond to the central processing unit. And I think, especially when you do the Brahma Vihara meditations, the loving kindness, compassion, or if you feel deep empathy with somebody, you could almost, definitely you can feel that sensation in this region. You don't feel it up here. Or if you're stricken with deep sorrow, you say, I'm brokenhearted. And I hear that some people, even when the sorrow is so deep, they die of a broken heart. It doesn't mean that if you cut them open, you find that the physical heart has been divided into two parts, but rather that the force of their anguish has been so strong that the heart base can no longer serve as a basis for life and consciousness. Okay, now with the heart base, we come to a major dividing line, because the four primary elements and the above 13 types of material phenomena, the 5 sense faculties, the 4 sense data, that's 9, the 2 types of sense determination, male and female, that's 11, the life faculty, the heart base, plus physical nutriment, which will come later, those 18 are separated off under the category of, a technical expression is used, that these are concretely produced matter. They're concrete types of material phenomena. Things that one could actually investigate and see through contemplation with insight, or that one can infer through their functioning. The other types of so-called derived matter or secondary matter are modes or attributes of these types of concretely produced matter. And we'll see from what they are. Okay, so the first of these, and the 14th type of derived matter, is called bodily intimation. And this is said to be here the mode and alteration of the, it's a rather technical explanation, the mode and alteration of the consciousness-originated air element that causes the occurrence of moving forward and so forth, which mode and alteration are a condition for the stiffening, upholding, and moving of the cognizant material body. Speak about Buddha English. So let's translate this into ordinary English. And maybe actually the function maybe makes it, expresses this most clearly. So its function is to display intention. And then it said it is manifested as the cause of, Nanamoli had bodily excitement. And I don't think that was a good translation. So I would translate Kaya Vipandana as bodily gesturing or bodily gesticulation. So what is meant by bodily intimation is that movement of the body through which one expresses some kind of intention or some kind of mental state. For example, when I get angry, I clench my fist and I tighten the muscles of my face. So that would be a bodily intimation. So if you're getting on my nerves, or asking me embarrassing question, and I sort of frown like this and look at you with a glaring expression in my face. So that would be a kind of bodily intimation. So I don't have to say anything. You just know to back off. And if, say, you like something that I said, you go like this. So that's a bodily intimation. And if I'm standing around talking to somebody, then I go say like this. Or I see somebody in the distance, I go, so I'm calling that person to me. That's a bodily intimation. So it's the expression of intention or of mental states by means of bodily gestures, expressions, and so forth. Okay, the next type of derived matter is called verbal intimation. And this is the mode and alteration in the consciousness originated earth element that causes, that causes the occurrence of speech utterances, which mode and alteration are a condition for the knocking together of clung to or derived or organic matter. Again, this is very heavily infused with technical Buddhist expressions. But the main point, its function is to display intention, and it is manifested as the cause of, I would say, the cause of verbal speech or verbal utterances. And so probably what's meant is that verbal intimation is that particular factor that causes, say, me now to be transforming bodily movement into speech. So an idea comes to the mind that I'm going to say this, and then that idea motivates probably what's meant by the earth element is the jaw, maybe the vocal cords, and the jaw which moves, and that vibration of the vocal cord and movement of the jaw results in verbal utterances. And through these utterances, then I'm expressing intentions. So it's said that this verbal intimation is the cause of the intimidating or the expression of intention by means of the voice in speech. I have to say, I do find some of these aspects of matter put under derived matter to be a bit strange to my way of thinking. But my job is just to explain the tradition, not in every case to justify it. Okay, the next is the space element, which, as understood in the Abhidhamma, is not what we would call the all-embracing cosmic space, the space that encompasses everything. But the space element is used to indicate, this is a bit strange to me, the gaps between concrete material objects. So this cup of water is now half full, so the half which is empty of water is now occupied by the space element. It's strange because also the air element is there. But probably at the microscopic level, the space between the subatomic particles of matter would be the space element. So it is manifested as the confines or boundaries of matter, and it's something that cannot be touched. It doesn't have the tactile property. Okay, next we come to three properties of material phenomena, particularly observable in the body, which go together very closely. One is called the lightness of matter. This is the ability of matter to undergo quick transformations. Maybe you experience this at times when, even though there's no change in your weight, but some days the body feels light, ebullient, and easy to move, very versatile. Other days, though there's no gain of weight, but the body feels heavy and sluggish. So that would be different degrees of the lightness of matter. So when the body can move quickly and easily, that would be lightness. When it's sluggish and dull, that would be the diminishment or the absence of lightness. Okay, malleability of matter, that is the ability of the body to move, or of any kind of matter to be, for its shape to be changed. Maybe we could see this malleability of matter in yogis who are very skilled in different asanas, who could bend and twist their body in ways that we would consider inconceivable. And then there's wieldiness of matter, and that is the ability or that characteristic of body, the body that's favorable to bodily action. So when one is capable of engaging in different activities, that illustrates the wieldiness of matter. Here, this passage explains, the three seem very similar, but this passage explains their difference. So lightness of matter is alteration of matter, such as any light or agile state in matter, as in one who is healthy, any non-slowness, any manner of light transformation. So that is the lightness of matter. Malleability of matter is the pliable manner, being amenable to the exercise of power over them, so you can shape some kind of matter. Like clay, for example, would be malleable, whereas cement would be not malleable. And then the wieldiness of matter is said to be favorableness to the work of the body. Again, don't ask me to explain in detail the differences between these. This is the best I could do, is pretty much refer to the text. Okay, then we come to, I think it will be 4 types of matter which go together. Growth of matter, continuity of matter. Then we come, following that, to aging or decay and impermanence. So growth of matter, it's said to have the characteristic of setting up. This is not very informative. The function, maybe this makes it clearer, it's to make material phenomena emerge in the first place. When some material phenomena emerges, like maybe we have a seed, plant a seed in the ground, and then suddenly, one day, the sprout emerges from the seed. That initial emerging of the seed, of the sprout from the seed, that would be the growth of matter. Or maybe when an ovum in the womb gets fertilized by the sperm, then it turns into the initial cell of a living organism. That occasion would be the growth of matter. Okay, then the continuity of matter is the continuous growth, the continuing growth of matter. Actually, growth of matter, maybe this rendering is not so helpful. I would say the springing up or origination of matter. And then the second one, the continuity of matter, is the continuous growth. So after the sprout emerges from the seed, then the sprout will continue to grow up bigger and bigger and bigger. Then when branches emerge from the sprout, that would be the growth of a new kind of matter. Then as the branches continue to grow, that would be, and to spread out, to extend, that would be continuity of matter. Here there's a passage, I think this comes in the Abhidhamma treatise, Dhammasangani. The setting up of the sense bases is the growth of matter. So this would be in the fetus when the sense base arises. For example, when the first instance of the eye and ear and nose and tongue emerge, that would be the growth of matter. And then when those sense faculties continue to grow and to mature, that would be the continuity of matter, the continuous growth. Actually, the commentary says genesis is what is called growth, whereas continued occurrence, that is called continuity. Okay, then the third instance in this particular group is aging, which has the characteristic of maturing or the ripening of matter. So aging is something our bodies are always undergoing, and some of us are feeling it more distinctly than others. But it said that this is said with reference to the kind of aging that is evident through seeing alteration in the teeth, such as the breaking of the teeth, the graying of the hair, the wrinkling of the skin, and so forth. So that is aging. Then the impermanence of matter, that has the characteristic of the complete breaking up or dissolution of the material phenomena. So in the human life, probably the growth or genesis would correspond to the first moment of conception, when the fertilized ovum emerges. Then continued occurrence will be the growth of the fetus up to the point where it comes out from the womb. Then we have the little baby growing into into a child, an infant, a child, teenager, adult. Then after reaching the age as an adult of 75 or so, it starts to undergo aging. No, maybe we should say after reaching the age of 25, 18, starts to undergo aging, and then at the end of the lifespan, with death, there comes the impermanence of matter. So it's time to call the monks to the funeral and to chant anicca vata sankhara. All conditioned things are impermanent. Okay, then the 24th type of derived matter is called physical nutriment or also it's called nutritive essence. And this is not exactly the same as the food that we eat. The food that we eat is gross food, but within that gross food, there's nutritive essence or physical nutriment. So these physical nutriment would correspond to the nutrients in the food, those components of the food that the body extracts and then utilizes in the metabolism to build up, the cells, tissues, and organs of the body. And the rest of the food gets passed into the large intestine, then into the anus, and then comes out through the rectum. It's expelled. So that the essential components of the food which provide us with the nutrition, that's the nutritive essence. And according to the Abhidhamma, the nutritive essence is present in all matter. Like, for example, we look at a piece of wood, we don't think the wood is not food, but you put that plank of wood next to a termite mound, and within a day or two, it won't be there anymore. There'll only be a heap of sawdust left. Okay, so this takes us now through the Abhidhammic analysis of material phenomena. So we have, I think, 5 minutes to take questions, to clear up anything that's been puzzling, unclear. And again, before I answer the questions, I have to make that confession that some of this I find perplexing, bewildering myself. So if I'm not able to answer the question, please excuse me for that inability. So Matt, I think I saw your hand up. Matt, did you have the question? Who?
Hi, my name is Tushari.
Oh yeah, I see.
I have a question. You talked about the desire to experience, desire to like ear faculty, nose faculty. We're talking about all these faculties, and you highlighted the desire to experience that. But why wasn't it highlighted in, or didn't it come out in femininity faculty?
Why didn't it come out in what?
Yeah, femininity faculty, the other faculties you talked about.
Oh, I see.
Why was it like only on partly I saw it, maybe it's in the text somewhere.
I think probably one would say that also the femininity faculty and the masculinity faculty are acquired through karma, through a karmic, and through, I would say again through the craving for experience, either as a woman or as a man. But the text just doesn't mention that there. I don't know why.
Okay.
Maybe because it's taken to be self-evident, whereas in the case of the sense faculties, it's not so obvious.
Okay. May I ask another follow-up question, or should I give it?
If it's a short question, then go ahead.
I'm not sure about that, but I'll ask that another time then.
Okay. And don't forget, I think tonight we have a lot of time for questions. So then you could ask the more challenging questions. But for now, I just want questions aimed at clarification.
Bhante, it's Matthew. In terms of consciousness, is there a consciousness faculty that's a nutriment for?
A consciousness faculty that is...
Is there such a concept? Is the nose, the eye, are the basis for nose consciousness or scent consciousness?
Yeah.
For consciousness itself, mind consciousness, does there have to be a contact for mind consciousness to arise or to continue, or is it sort of its own
for
sui
consciousness
generis?
to occur, there has to be contact. But we're going to come to consciousness in the afternoon. So I think your question would probably be more relevant to the afternoon.
Is it a good question or not? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Bhante, I'd like to follow up on her question about the male and the female faculty.
Yeah.
And how does it square with what's I'm finding a changing environment today
Yeah.
where people are becoming transsexual or
Yeah.
binary.
Actually, that's interesting.
How
Yeah.
does it square with this?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. Okay, people who have, there are people they call intersex, people who have both male and female characteristics. Perhaps this is what was also called hermaphrodite. So my conjecture would be that in Adamic terms, somehow the person has both masculinity faculty and femininity faculty. Somehow they're both operative within their bodies. So that is for the intersex. For trans, people who are actually trans-sex, rather than just transgender. I think in transgender, there's a change in the sense of one's gender identity, but the transsexual is one who undergoes actually a change of sexuality. And instances of that, interestingly, are recorded in the Vinaya, the book of monastic discipline, where,
Repeat, please, the name of it?
this is the Vinaya. It's a collection of monastic discipline, but there's a case is recorded where, there's the distinction between the bhikkhu sangha, the bhikkhuni sangha, the monks and the nuns, and there was a monk who, his body spontaneously transformed from the male into the female, and as a result of that transformation, he didn't know where he should live, whether he should continue to stay with the bhikkhu sangha. So this case was then recorded to the Buddha. There's no condemnation from the Buddha at all. He just says he should move over to the residence of the bhikkhunis.
Quan Yin.
Actually, Quan Yin is that's an interesting example, because in Indian Buddhism, the prototype of Quan Yin is Avalokiteshvara, who is represented as male, but is said to be able to manifest as female in response to the needs of devotees. But then in China, when Quan Yin or Avalokiteshvara first came to China, it was still represented as male, as seen here. But then over time, Quan Yin was transformed into female, as seen in the middle statue.
But it came up as a result of karma. I mean, you're saying that in a way, as we take rebirth, but then there's this complex thing in some people that isn't that or that. I'm just wondering what the karma, that motive. I'm sorry. I'm going to. I'll just.
It's an interesting question, but to answer it is beyond my range.
Thank you so much.
We just have to say that there is.
Thank you for
there is some karma that has caused that. What the karma is, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, we can take one more question, then we'll have to go for lunch. Unless you find this all so interesting that you want to skip lunch.
I have a quick question about internal speech. So those voices that we hear in our head and those things that we say, would that be considered verbal intimation?
No. That is the working of two mental factors that we'll come to, I think, tomorrow. They're called, or in Pali, vitaka and vichara. This would be applied thought and sustained thought, or thinking and investigation, different translations. Yes. Okay, so let us then end for the morning session. We could rise and then do 3 bows to the Buddha.